Hey gang, welcome back. Thanks for watching. So Brad Pitt left the Christian faith over one main objection. And we're going to answer that objection by giving you two extremely important principles that will not only answer Brad Pitt, but help worship make more sense, the Bible make more sense, and Jesus' death on the cross make more sense. I'm Brett Nicholson, I'm pastor of One Life Church, and we want to provide biblical content to help you in your one and only life. Now, we know Brad Pitt's a great actor. He's made some great movies, Fight Club, Oceans 11, 12, 13, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, just to name a few. But what you may not know is that before he became a Hollywood megastar, Brad Pitt grew up in what could be described as a very conservative Southern Baptist home. He was a church kid, and he wrestled with the Christian belief. He said he bounced back and forth between agnosticism and atheism until he left the whole thing altogether for his own version of spirituality a little bit later. Here's his main objection, and he said it this way in an interview. I didn't understand the idea of a God who says, you have to acknowledge me. You have to say that I'm the best, and then I'll give you eternal happiness. If you won't, then you don't get it. It seemed to be about ego. I can't see a God operating from ego, so it made no sense to me. Now, I don't throw rocks at Brad Pitt over that objection. The main reason is I've wondered about the same thing, and I'm sure a lot of people have. Maybe some of you have as well. So is the whole deal with worshiping God really just an ego trip for God? Now, it's easy to see why someone would think that. We could name a lot of principles that would answer the question, but I want to focus in on two. Number one, to help us understand worship, it's not about God's ego. We need to remember that God is incomprehensible in his power. And we've all had the experience of, seeing something that we would describe as awesome. There's a star-filled night, beautiful sunset, the mountains, or this waterfall. I absolutely love this waterfall. Now, with each of these things, you're not told by anyone or anything to be awed or to be wowed. It's just if you're paying attention and you have your head screwed on straight, it comes naturally to do that. And these are just simple life examples. Now, what if we were to go deeper and thought about just one of these things in a more focused way? Like, for instance, stars. Okay, so we all know our sun is actually a star. Now, think about this. The sun is a fireball on which all of life depends. It's just hanging there in the air. It's 93 million miles away. If you were to get in a car and travel at normal highway speeds, it would take you 163 years to arrive at the sun. Yet, at the same time, it's able to sustain all of life on Earth and burn your skin when you're sitting on the beach. The sun's so large that it could fit 1.3 million planet Earths inside of it. It really is an incomprehensible, powerful thing all by itself. But get this, astronomers will tell you it's an average-sized star. It's dwarfed by other stars that we know about. And the sun is one of a number of stars so great. No one knows how many there really are, but what they can say is that the number is somewhere along the lines of there is as many stars in the universe as there are numbers of grains of sand in all the beaches in all the world, and some would go on to say that number times 10. Now, when you're on the beach sometime, or if your kid has a sandbox in the backyard, pick up a handful of sand and just look at the grains and imagine that's just a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of how many stars there are. That is a mind-blowing thing to think about. Now, with that in mind, think about this. The last survey of people in America shows that 81% of adults believe in God. And when people say they believe in God, they're typically saying they believe in the dictionary definition of God. Let me show you what that says. Here's the dictionary definition. God, in Christianity and monotheistic religion, is the creator and ruler of the universe and the source of all moral authority, the supreme being. So most of the 81% would say they believe, number one, in a being who has the intelligence, creativity, and power to create all things. With that in mind, let's step back and imagine, if that's true, we're talking about a being who would be worthy of worship if he had the ability to create just our sun. But we're talking about someone who is able to create as many suns as there are grains of sand in all the beaches in all the world. That's incomprehensible power. And if you were to meet this being who had the power to do that face to face, you'd worship. You wouldn't have to be told to. If you were thinking and had your head screwed on straight, you would. Why? Because to worship means to recognize and respond to worth. But that's not where it ends. When the Jewish people gave us their concept of God in the Bible, they said that this all-powerful being was also incomprehensible in his purity. That's the second principle. Worship is not about ego because God is incomprehensible in his purity. He's the source of all that's good, moral, just, right, and beautiful. He's perfect in his moral excellence. And that goodness is on the scale of his power. The Bible word for that is holy. The Bible says God is holy, holy, holy. Let me ask you something. Have you ever been around someone who made you feel like a moral degenerate? Now, I'm not talking about someone who said judgmental things. I'm talking about someone you knew was simply living a purer, more loving and selfless life than you were. I have. In our church, once we participated in a thing where we recorded loving actions we did. It was this program where people anonymously wrote down things that they did were loving. And I saw those reports, and one struck me pretty deep. We had someone who would go into nursing homes a few times a week and sing songs and play music for the residents. Now, if you've ever had a loved one in a nursing home, you know that they aren't exactly the easiest place to visit. They really are the forgotten corners of our society. And here was someone who, while I was binging on Netflix, was spending their time going and bringing joy to those who lacked it. And that's just a little snapshot of holiness, moral excellence. And I know it pushed back on my own selfishness just by hearing about it. Think of holiness and moral excellence on the scale of creative power larger than the universe. And once again, if you were to see such a one like this, face to face, you'd worship. You'd recognize worth. It would be completely appropriate to bow down and honor. It's an easy thing to grasp. That's why the Bible tells us scenes like this. And at first, when we read them, they sound a little strange. The people in the Bible, when they encounter God, they bow down to do all this. But remember, God is incomprehensibly powerful and incomprehensibly pure. If we see that, it feels appropriate to what we're dealing with. Now, if you keep your eye on those two ideas, Brad Pitt's objection, while understandable, I think is a little short-sighted. But also, more importantly, I promise if you will, the Bible will make more sense, worship will make more sense, and what Jesus did on the cross will make more sense. I hope you found that helpful. If you did, please hit like and subscribe. See you next time.